Family flew to the Bahamas without telling me. You always ruin the mood, Dad said. I didn't argue, I just went home, opened my Raptor and canceled every transfer. Days later their bank account started bouncing. Before we dive into this thrilling story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest uploads. Your support keeps us going. Now, let's get into it. You weren't invited because we didn't want you there. I stared at the message on my phone, unable to process the words. My thumb hovered above the screen, trembling slightly. I blinked, read it again, then again, hoping somehow that the text would morph into something different, something softer, more logical, more human. But it didn't. It remained the same, cold, final, unapologetic. A one-line text from my father that hit harder than any blow. We didn't want you there. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. A strange numbness spread from my chest to my limbs, like my body couldn't decide how to react. My eyes traced back over the chain of events that led to this moment, and for the first time, the puzzle pieces of confusion and denial clicked into place, forming a picture so cruel and deliberate I nearly dropped my phone. A day before, I had opened Instagram during lunch, mindlessly scrolling through stories and posts to kill time. That's when I saw it. A photo uploaded by my younger brother Frank. A sunny beach, golden waves, everyone in bright swimsuits, drinks in hand, smiles beaming across familiar faces. Our parents, my siblings, my cousins, all of them together relaxed, happy. The caption read, "Well-deserved family retreat, blue heart palm tree." Family. That word hit me like a punch to the stomach. I zoomed in on the photo, scanning every corner, every reflection, as if somehow I might find a piece of myself there. A shoe, a hand, anything. But of course I wasn't in the picture because I wasn't on the trip, because I hadn't even known about it. My heart pounded in my chest as I flicked through the rest of Frank's posts. More pictures, more smiles, a group dinner at a luxury resort, a boat excursion, late night dancing under fairy lights, and still, nothing. No messages from anyone, no hints, no wish you were here, no, had to leave without you, just silence. Omission. Erasure. I went to my messages, scrolled through our family group chat, Ghost Town. The last text was from me 2 weeks ago, reminding Dad to check his blood pressure medication. No reply. I had chalked it up to him being forgetful or distracted. Now, it read like a breadcrumb trail of disregard. My hands were cold when I finally called him. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey kid," he said cheerfully, like nothing was wrong. I didn't waste time. "Where are you all?" There was a pause, barely a second, but I caught it. "We're on vacation." "Without me," I said. Another silence. Then he sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Well, we figured you wouldn't be interested in coming." I laughed, not out of amusement, but disbelief. "You assumed I wouldn't want to go on a family vacation that you've clearly been planning for months?" "We didn't think you'd care," he said flatly. "You're always busy. You work all the time. Honestly, you kind of bring the energy down." It was like something inside me snapped, not from anger, not yet, but from a realization so painful it bordered on surreal. "So you just what? Decided I didn't belong?" "It's not personal, Samuel," he replied, using the full version of my name like he always did when he was trying to sound firm and logical. "We just thought it would be best this way." My voice was low, measured. "I send you a month." He didn't respond. "I've paid off your debts, covered the car repairs, helped with the hospital bills. I've missed vacations, promotions, opportunities because I was making sure you and Mom were okay. Don't make this a big deal," he muttered. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I simply hung up. And then I sat in the silence, phone still in my hand, staring into nothing. There were no tears, no hysteria, just stillness. My whole body locked in place, like I had finally hit the end of a long, exhausting road. They hadn't forgotten to invite me. They hadn't assumed I was busy. They didn't want me there. This wasn't a slip-up. This was a decision. I opened my banking app with fingers that barely felt like mine. The monthly transfer, $2,500, was scheduled to go out in 3 days. I canceled it. Then I checked the shared emergency fund account, the one I had been contributing to for years. The balance was nearly zero. Of course it was. I transferred what little was left into my own account and removed their access. And then I did something that felt like breathing after drowning. I blocked them. First my father, then my mother, then each sibling, one by one. My phone fell to the couch, screen black. I lay back, eyes wide open, heart strangely calm. For the first time in years I wasn't their safety net, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. Relief. But the relief didn't last. By the next morning my phone was buzzing like it was under attack. Calls, texts, voicemails, notifications from Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly reaching out. The first message I opened was from my aunt. "Hey, your mom just called me sobbing, what's going on?" Then my cousin Nancy. "Wait, did you seriously cut off your parents? What happened?" And then came the guilt trips. "You're being unbelievably selfish. They gave you everything when you were growing up. You're abandoning your family." But one message stood out. It came from an unknown number. "You really think you can just walk away from us? After everything we've done for you? You're pathetic." Hope you enjoyed being alone. I knew who it was before I even finished reading. My father. I stared at it, heart still, blood cold, and I felt nothing. No rage, no sorrow, just exhaustion. They weren't angry because they had hurt me. They were angry because they had lost access to the bank. Me. And for the first time I didn't care. I put the phone down, made coffee, sat by the window, listened to the city outside. They could scream, guilt trip, manipulate. It didn't matter anymore, because I wasn't going back. Not this time. I had drawn a line, and for once I was going to hold it. No more rescues, no more bailing them out. Let them figure out what life looks like when they don't have a son to exploit. Let them finally understand what it means to be on their own. And me? For the first time in my life I was free. The silence didn't last. It never does. By the afternoon of the next day my phone had become a weapon. A non-stop barrage of calls, texts, notifications. I hadn't blocked everyone, just my immediate family. But the tentacles reached further. They always do. Aunt Margie, Cousin Nancy, Uncle Dennis, friends I hadn't spoken to in months. All of them were suddenly buzzing with concern, judgment, and barely veiled outrage. The first text I opened was from my aunt. "Your mom is in tears, Samuel. What is going on? She said you just stopped helping them out, that you cut off contact. Are you okay?" Then another one, more direct. "Did you really abandon your parents, after everything they've done for you?" Then came the avalanche. Dozens of variations on the same theme, each one hammering down on me like I was some monstrous traitor, a heartless child, an ungrateful son. As if I had awoken one day and decided to punish my aging parents out of spite. What none of them seemed to ask, what none of them wanted to ask was why. Not a single message said, "Hey, I heard what happened. I'm sorry. That must have hurt." Not one person asked, "Did they really go on a vacation without you?" It was all just immediate, knee-jerk condemnation, guilt, control. I sat in my apartment surrounded by echoes of other people's expectations and stared at the pile-up of digital judgment. And I realized something I hadn't fully admitted to myself before. They never saw me. They only saw the money. It wasn't just my parents who had gotten used to me being the one who fixed everything. It was the extended family too. I was the success story, the responsible one, the one who always stepped up. When there was a funeral, I paid. When someone needed help with tuition, I offered. When there was a medical emergency, I was there. But the moment I stopped, the moment I chose myself, they turned on me. The messages got worse. "You're being unbelievably selfish. You're turning your back on the people who raised you. Do you even remember what your parents sacrificed for you?" Sacrificed? They excluded me from a family vacation and told me without shame that they didn't want me there. My voice didn't matter. My presence didn't matter. But the money? That mattered plenty. I had thought that would be the worst of it. The texts, the guilt, the emotional manipulation. I was wrong. The real attack hadn't even started. It began when I walked into work 2 days later and saw the look on my boss's face. He called me into his office, closed the door behind me, and motioned to a chair. "Got a second, Samuel?" I sat, trying to keep my breathing steady. "This morning," he said, folding his hands, "I received a call from your mother." The words felt like ice water down my spine. "She told me you were going through an emotional crisis," he continued, watching me carefully. "That you'd been making erratic financial decisions. That you were pushing away your family. She said you needed time off." I clenched my fists in my lap, forcing my voice to stay calm. "That's not true." "I didn't think it was," he said. "I told her your private affairs are none of my concern." But I still had to check in. I nodded slowly. "I'm fine. I cut off financial support to my parents because I felt taken advantage of. They're upset. That's all this is." He leaned back. "I believe you. But Samuel, this kind of interference isn't okay. If they contact the office again, you tell me immediately." "Understood?" "Understood." When I left his office, I felt something twist in my gut. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was betrayal layered on betrayal. My own mother had tried to sabotage my job, painting me as unstable in an attempt to shame or scare me back into compliance. They weren't content with guilt-tripping me through private messages. They wanted to publicly humiliate me, to destroy me if it meant regaining control. That evening the pressure intensified. Voicemails, texts, new numbers, burner phones, messages from people I hadn't spoken to since high school. "Your mom said you won't respond. What's going on? They're saying you're acting strange. Should I be worried about you? Why are you doing this to your family?" One message caught my attention. They said they're considering selling furniture to survive. "Samuel, is that really what you want?" The phrasing was perfect. Manipulative, weaponized compassion. The implication wasn't just that I was letting them suffer. It was that I was cruel for not preventing their discomfort. Not poverty, not danger, just inconvenience. I wanted to scream. Instead, I texted back, "They're not struggling, they're manipulating. Please don't get involved." But people were involved because my family dragged them in. Even my best friend Carl messaged me, "Yo, your mom hit me up on Facebook." I stared at the text stunned. "What did she say?" I asked. Seconds later, he sent a screenshot. It was a private message from her. "Carl, I hate to bother you like this, but I'm really worried about Samuel. He's been acting strangely, cutting off his family, making rash decisions." We're afraid he's depressed. If you hear from him, please encourage him to reach out. We just want to help." I called Carl immediately. Before I could speak, he said, "Dude, don't worry. I don't believe any of it, thank you." I exhaled. "They're just angry because I stopped the money." "I figured," he said. "Still, that's low, really low." "Yeah," I whispered, my throat dry. "It is." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My phone buzzed once every few minutes. The relentless pressure, the emotional ambush, it was suffocating. They were trying to isolate me by pretending I was the one isolating myself. They were painting me as unstable because it was easier than admitting they had done something wrong. And worst of all, some people were starting to believe them. That was the real danger. Because if they could rewrite the story, turn me into the villain, the broken son, then they could reclaim their status as victims. And if enough people believed that narrative, then I would be the villain, alone, cold, heartless. Not because I was, but because they said I was. I stared into the dark and realized something bone deep. This wasn't going to end with texts and phone calls. This was a war, and they were just getting started. There's only so much you can take before something inside you flips. After days of being hounded by messages, smeared behind my back, and painted as unstable to my own boss and friends, I finally reached my limit. I was done playing defense. I was done being quiet. If they wanted to involve everyone in this mess, fine. But I was going to tell the whole story. No more half-truths, no more hiding behind politeness or guilt. If they were going to twist the narrative, I was going to rip the curtain down and show everyone exactly what had been happening all these years. So, I opened Facebook. Not a story, not a vague post, a full status, public. My fingers hovered above the keyboard for a moment, and then I started to type. No drama, no insults, just the truth, plain and sharp like glass. "Hey everyone, just to clear up some confusion, I'm not having a breakdown. I haven't abandoned my family. I've simply stopped financially supporting my parents. For years I paid their bills, covered their debts, and provided for them while they lived comfortably. I sent $2,500 every single month to help out, and I never once complained. Recently I found out they planned a family vacation and deliberately excluded me, not by accident, not by scheduling conflict. They chose not to invite me. When I asked why, they said we didn't want you there. Since then, they've reached out to my friends, my coworkers, and even my boss, telling them I'm mentally unstable, making poor decisions. This is all because I chose to stop funding their lifestyle. So if you hear anything from them about me being off or going through something, now you know the truth. I'm not unstable, I'm just done being used." I hit post. Then I closed the app and waited. It didn't take long. Within minutes, the reactions started flooding in. Likes, comments, shares, private messages, notifications popping up so fast I couldn't even keep track. Some were shocked. Others were angry on my behalf. The first message came from Nancy, my cousin. "Wait, they took a vacation without you? And you were the one funding them? That's messed up." Then Uncle Dennis, "Son, I had no idea. You've always been generous. Don't let anyone guilt trip you for finally saying enough." Then Aunt Ashley, "They called me last week saying you were acting strange. I didn't realize it was because you cut them off. That's disgusting." And then came the comments, public ones, people calling them out, siding with me. My uncle posted, "How can you say you're struggling when Samuel was giving you $2,500 a month? That's more than what most people even make. Be honest." A family friend chimed in. "You had no issue using his money before, but now that the cash flow's gone, suddenly he's the bad guy." The carefully constructed image they had tried to protect, the poor innocent parents abandoned by their ungrateful son, was falling apart, and they were watching it unravel in real time. I could imagine their faces sitting at their kitchen table, phones blowing up, seeing the lies exposed for everyone to read. No more whispered stories. No more one-sided conversations. The curtain had been pulled back, but I wasn't done yet. If they wanted to bring other people into this, I was going to make sure everybody understood what really happened. And that included the one person I should have called a long time ago, their landlord. I pulled up the number and dialed. "Hello?" he answered after a few rings. "Hi, Mr. Ryan. This is Samuel Jennings." A pause. "Ah yes, everything okay? I just wanted to let you know," I said slowly, "that I will no longer be covering my parents' rent. Any previous arrangements, consider them over." Another pause. Then a low chuckle. "Well, I figured this day would come eventually." That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "Your parents have been late with rent several times," he said, voice calm. "But every time they'd say, 'Don't worry, our son will take care of it.' They treated it like a guarantee, like you were some sort of automatic safety net." My jaw tightened. "Well, that ends today." "Understood," he said. "I'll expect the rent on time next month. If not, they'll have to deal with the consequences." We ended the call and I sat there, the weight of the moment finally sinking in. For years, I'd been patching holes in their lives, covering their bad decisions, financing their comfort. And now for the first time they were going to feel what it was like to live without that crutch. That same evening, my phone pinged again. "Barbara, my sister, are you seriously posting about our family on Facebook?" I didn't hesitate. I'm not exposing anything. I'm correcting the lies our parents have been spreading. This is humiliating for them. Maybe they should have thought about that before they tried to paint me as mentally unstable. Silence. Then, you're being heartless. No, I replied. I'm being honest. She didn't reply after that. I imagined the chaos erupting on their end, panicked calls, desperate attempts to do damage control, frenzied explanations to every relative who had finally heard my side of the story. They had underestimated me. They thought I'd fold like always, that I'd come crawling back, but not this time. This time, I wasn't the one with something to hide. They were, and the world was finally seeing it. It didn't take long for the fallout to reach my doorstep, literally. I was halfway through dinner when the pounding on my front door began. Not a polite knock. It was urgent, frantic, the kind of knocking that demanded attention, like the person on the other side believed sheer force might break through not just the door, but every boundary I had just spent weeks trying to build. I stood slowly and looked through the peephole. My mother. She stood there, clutching her phone, her face pale, her body tense. I hesitated, hand hovering near the knob. For a split second, I considered pretending not to be home, but a deeper part of me, the one that had been quiet for years, was curious. What excuse would she give now? What lie was she about to spin? I opened the door. She stepped forward immediately, but I blocked the entrance with my arm. Her face was drawn and swollen, her eyes red from crying. She looked like a woman at the end of her rope, and I wondered for just a moment if this was the first time in years she'd ever felt what it was like to be at someone else's mercy. "Samuel, please," she said, her voice cracking. "We need to talk." "About what?" I asked calmly. "Mr. Ryan called," she said, blinking quickly, as if even saying it aloud made it more real. "He told us you won't be paying the rent anymore." "I told you I was done," I replied. "Why is this a surprise?" Tears welled up in her eyes again. "We need you." "No," I said, voice flat. "You need my money." She recoiled slightly, like I'd slapped her. "We raised you," she whispered. "We took care of you. And now that we're the ones who need help, you're turning your back on us?" A bitter laugh escaped my throat before I could stop it. "You didn't seem to need me when you planned a whole vacation and didn't invite me. You didn't need me when you told me I'd bring the energy down. Remember that?" She opened her mouth but no words came out. "So let's be honest," I continued. "You didn't see me as family. You saw me as a service. As long as the money showed up on time, you didn't care whether I existed. And the second I stopped being useful, you tried to destroy my reputation. You went to my friends. You called my boss. You tried to make me look crazy. And now what? You want forgiveness?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "So you're just going to let us struggle?" I met her gaze steady and unblinking. "You'll manage." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. And in a way, maybe she didn't. Maybe for the first time she was meeting the version of her son who had finally drawn a line. Not the helper, not the fixer, not the ATM, just a man who had had enough. Her sorrow twisted slowly into something else. Anger. Her posture straightened, her eyes narrowed. "Fine," she snapped. "If this is who you've become, don't expect us to ever forgive you." I leaned casually against the doorframe. "Forgive me for what? For protecting myself? For setting boundaries?" "No, Mom. The only people who should be asking for forgiveness are you and Dad." Her jaw clenched. She turned without another word and walked away. I closed the door behind her and locked it. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't second guess. I just stood there, in the quiet, listening as her footsteps faded down the hallway. And I smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I had won. But the drama wasn't over yet. Within an hour I got a message from Barbara. Mom came home distraught. "What did you say to her?" "The truth. You're being heartless. She's upset because she lost control, not because she lost me." There was a pause. Then a new message from my father. "You made your decision. Don't come crawling back when you regret it." I stared at it, then typed back the last thing I would ever say to him. "I won't." Days passed, then weeks. No more texts, no more calls. The silence was like oxygen, rich and life-giving. I didn't know how much I'd needed this space until I had it. For the first time in years, my paycheck remained untouched. No sudden demands, no endless emergencies, no quiet resentment buried under cheerful family photos. I saved money. I slept better. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for the next guilt grenade. I started planning a trip for myself, my first real vacation in years. I looked at flights, researched hotels, made reservations that didn't require anyone's approval. I thought about standing on a beach, drink in hand, smiling for a photo not out of obligation but from actual joy. I wasn't their bank. I wasn't their safety net. I was free. And then something unexpected happened. I felt peace, the kind of peace that doesn't come from revenge or spite or even justice. It came from clarity, from knowing that I hadn't overreacted, that I wasn't crazy, that I had given more than most people ever would, and had every right to walk away when it became too much. They had tried everything to pull me back. They used guilt, they used lies, they used the people around me, and when all that failed, they resorted to public humiliation. But none of it worked, because once the truth is out, it doesn't go back in. And the truth was simple. I gave, they took, I drew a line, they crossed it, I walked away. That's not betrayal, that's self-respect. So I let go, not just of them but of the version of myself who believed love had to be earned through sacrifice. Who thought being a good son meant being a silent one, who confused loyalty with servitude. That version of me was gone. The new me? He's learning what family really means. And it's not blood, it's boundaries, it's mutual respect, it's love that gives back. And if they can't give me that, they don't deserve to be in my life at all. There comes a moment in every person's life when silence becomes clarity, when letting go becomes liberation, and when choosing yourself over others is no longer selfish, it's survival. For years I believed that love meant sacrifice, that family meant obligation, that being a good son meant giving, endlessly, unquestioningly, even when it cost me my peace, my dreams, and my dignity. I thought that loyalty meant absorbing every burden, paying every debt, fixing every crisis, and asking for nothing in return. I thought that was what love looked like. But I was wrong. What this experience taught me more than anything else is that love without respect is not love at all. You can pour your heart, time, and money into people, but if they only value you for what you provide, not for who you are, then what they feel isn't love, it's dependency. And dependency disguised as affection is one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation. It traps you in a cycle where your worth is measured by your usefulness, not your humanity. The moment my father said, "We didn't want you there," something inside me shattered, but something else was born, a sense of self-worth that had been buried under years of people-pleasing and quiet suffering. I realized I had spent most of my adult life prioritizing others while neglecting myself. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I gave when I was already empty. I bent over backwards to support a family that never once asked how I was doing. They didn't invite me into their lives. They expected me to fund it from a distance. And when I dared to stop, they didn't reach out with compassion, they responded with rage, blame, and emotional warfare. It made me realize that family, as sacred as it is, does not give anyone the right to violate your boundaries. Blood may connect us, but it does not entitle anyone to your energy, your money, or your life. We live in a culture that romanticizes sacrifice, especially within families. We're taught that good children take care of their parents no matter what, that it's our duty to repay the people who raised us. But what happens when those same people take advantage of that duty? What happens when love is one-sided, and giving becomes a transaction rather than a connection? This experience taught me that boundaries are not cruel, they are essential. Saying no does not make you cold-hearted. Refusing to be exploited does not make you a bad person. It makes you someone who understands that love is not about losing yourself, it's about meeting in the middle. And when others refuse to meet you there, you are not obligated to keep extending yourself. You are allowed to walk away. Another painful but liberating lesson I learned is that not everyone will understand your growth, and that's okay. Some people will cling to the version of you that served them. They will say you've changed. They will accuse you of becoming bitter, distant, or selfish. But what they really mean is that you've stopped being easy to control. And when they lose that control, they panic. They try to discredit you, guilt-trip you, turn others against you, all in the hope that you'll revert to your former self, the one who gave without question. Don't fall for it. The truth is, you are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. You are only responsible for maintaining them. People who truly love you will respect those lines. They will see your limits not as rejection but as a form of self-care. And those who cannot accept your boundaries? They were never really with you to begin with, they were with what you could do for them. I also learned the power of truth. When I finally spoke out, when I told the world what had really been happening behind the scenes, something amazing happened. People listened, they supported me, they validated my pain. And slowly, the shame I had been carrying for years began to disappear. Because silence protects abusers. Secrecy keeps toxic cycles alive. But truth sets you free. It brings light into dark places. It holds people accountable. And sometimes, it even gives others the courage to speak up about their own experiences. But perhaps the most important lesson I learned is this. Freedom begins the moment you stop asking for permission to protect your peace. You don't need anyone's approval to reclaim your time, your energy, or your life. You don't need to justify why you stopped tolerating disrespect. You don't need to explain why you deserve better. You simply do. And once you accept that truth, you stop trying to convince others. You just live it. Now, on the other side of the chaos, I've discovered something I never expected: peace. The kind of peace that doesn't come from fixing other people's messes or earning praise. A peace that comes from knowing that I am no longer responsible for everyone's happiness. That I am allowed to put myself first. That I am not cruel for choosing healing over obligation. My phone is quieter now. My wallet is no longer a community resource. My mind, once cluttered with guilt and overthinking, has space to dream again. I travel. I sleep deeply. I laugh more, I create. And I've learned to surround myself with people who love me for who I am, not what I can give. To anyone out there who feels trapped in a similar situation, please hear this. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not cruel for refusing to be used. You do not owe your family your life. Especially when they've made it clear that they don't see you as anything more than a utility. Love should never feel like a contract you didn't sign. Respect is not optional, and peace is not something you have to earn through suffering. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say enough. And when you do, when you finally choose you, you'll find that the freedom on the other side is more powerful than anything you've ever known.
Thank you for watching. Like, share and follow.